All right, Chapter 8, A Very Big Risk. So when we left off with Chapter 7, we were told that Stumpy's world came crashing down to the cold, hard ground. And this is titled A Very Big Risk. Not really a picture this time. So, here we go. When evening descended and the ice storm had stopped, the professor still slept while Kona kept vigil at the window, trembling as giant pines bent their icy heads to the ground and jumping at the sharp sounds of thick bark breaking. All of the lights in the neighborhood were out. The refrigerator didn't hum, the plant light didn't buzz, and the warm furnace air didn't hush through the vents. Professor Albert's fireplace and the gas pot lamp in the front yard were the only source of light, and they cast a funereal glow upon the house and its occupants, stranded like polar bears on an Arctic floe. "What are we going to do, Gwendolyn?" Kona asked, his big head casting a giant shadow over her bowl. "Stumpy is in serious trouble." "Yes," Gwendolyn answered, nodding. "It's serious, very serious. Even if her tree is still standing, she will be trapped in her nest, and the ice, the babies—" "I have to help her," Kona said, pacing in circles around the living room. "Kona, dear, what can you do? She is at the top of a tall tree. There would be no way of reaching her. And the journey to the park? Treacherous, very treacherous indeed. The ice is difficult, nearly impossible to cross, as poor Professor Albert demonstrated earlier. Trees are coming down, heavy branches dropping from great heights. Kona, you would take a very big risk, and perhaps for naught. She is over 100 feet in the air." "But what if she isn't, Gwendolyn?" Kona stopped pacing and looked at the crab. "What if her tree is one of those that came down?" Gwendolyn shook her head sadly. "If it was, then I very much doubt, dear, that Stumpy... such a fall..." The old crab looked at the dog and spoke gently. "Her chance of surviving seems very unlikely." Kona took a deep breath and with wide eyes and sincere answered, "Whether she is alive or not, Gwendolyn, I have to take care of her." The crab sighed. "Well, my dear, I expect you to do. But I am not sure how you will accomplish it." 5 minutes later, Gwendolyn was working on the lock of Professor Albert's door. Kona held her steady in his mouth, and with a deft claw, she turned the mechanism gently, then click, it was done. Kona placed her back in her bowl. "Thank you for not sneezing, dear," she said. "I'm not sure if I can get the door open," said Kona. "Just pretend the knob is a bone," Gwendolyn answered. "I have every confidence you will do it." And the dog did. After only a minute or so of vigorous gnawing and biting, the door popped open. Kona looked back at his friend staring anxiously through the glass, at Professor Albert snoring peacefully on the sofa, at his own warm bed in the corner, and the inviting flames of the fireplace. "I'll be back soon, Gwendolyn," he said. "Of course you will," said the crab. "Take good care, dear." She did not want Kona to know how worried she was. When Kona went out the front door, he didn't close it all the way behind him. He needed to be able to get back into the house before Professor Albert woke again. Kona breathed deeply, took one strong, confident step, and with a magnificent slide, shot right off Professor Albert's porch into the top of a juniper bush. Sprawled there, he groaned and looked out at the several blocks he would have to cross to reach Gooseberry Park. He looked back at Gwendolyn in the window, her antennas swirling around and around. Just then, a heavy branch from a tree across the street crashed into the neighbor's front yard, taking several broken shingles with it. Kona sighed, then carefully maneuvered back onto his feet. Inching his way slowly, he began his icy journey. Gooseberry Park seemed to him to be on the other side of the world. Instead of taking the sidewalk, Kona decided to cut through yards. It would save time, and there would be more things to hold on to. He crossed one yard by hanging on to the hemlock hedge. A second yard had a rail fence he steadied himself against. In another, a long concrete planter kept him on his feet. Some yards had nothing at all to hold on to except an occasional ice-covered bush. In these yards, Kona danced, skated, skied, and rolled. He fell again and again, and once he struck his nose so hard it bled. Kona saw not one sign of life along the way, save for a large yellow tomcat who tried to impress him by strolling easily across the icy top of an Oldsmobile. Kona gave him a sour look and went on. The dog's body was bruised and his spirits had taken a beating as well. He was determined. He knew where to find Stumpy's tree and he was bound to make it there. Something inside was telling him to do it. His teeth ached from holding on to every solid object he could grasp. His tongue was numb with cold. But something called him, and no matter the price, he would answer. Chapter 9 is called Rescue and Remorse. When he finally reached Stumpy's pin oak tree, Kona was stunned by what he saw. The top of the tree had been snapped off like a beam. What was left of its lower trunk still stood sharp and upright, ice hanging down its sides like a fresh-cut wound. Scattered across the ground lay the debris that had once given the giant oak its majesty. Solid pieces of trunk, mammoth branches with long, graceful stems, hundreds of broken twigs, all glistened under a hard layer of ice. Kona could barely breathe. For a moment, he simply closed his eyes, then he whispered, "Stumpy!" His voice was lost in desolation of the park. He cleared his throat and this time spoke louder. "Stumpy!" Clamping his teeth on the scattered branches to steady himself, he made his way around what was left of the tree. Every few feet he called out, "Stumpy!" Each time he was met with silence, and when he found part of Stumpy's nest scattered on the ground, bits of bright material and gum wrappers thrown everywhere, it was almost more than he could bear. He sat down and hung his head, stopped there, motionless, discouraged, confused, and very cold. Kona heard a noise. It was a sound like a song. He lifted his ears. The sound was coming within a large piece of broken trunk that had rolled away from the rest of the debris and settled against a broad rhododendron bush. Kona stood up and listened more intently. "Rock-a-bye bottom in the treetop," someone sang. Get it? "Stumpy!" Kona's voice boomed across the wreckage. "Stump!" The dog leaped forward, then danced like Bolshevik, until he landed beside the singing tree trunk, flat on his back. He moaned. From a small round hole in the trunk, a little black head fuzzed with silver poked out. It looked at Kona. "Help!" the head shouted. Kona raised himself up and moved closer. The little black head that had yelled for help belonged to a bat. "Murray?" he inquired. "In person," answered the bat. "Are you all right?" Kona asked. "I think we bounced," said Murray. "You must be Kona. I knew Stumpy would find you. The kids are all in here snoring like elephants." "Stumpy didn't find me," said Kona. "I came on my own." "You did?" asked Murray. "Stumpy's not with you?" "No," said Kona. "Well, she's not with me," wailed Murray. "She said she'd go get you." "Where is she?" the two said together. Kona's heart sank. He looked all around the deathly quiet park. "Stump!" he called. "Stump!" "Oh, whoa," said Murray, shaking his head. "She said she'd find you and you could help us. Now she's disappeared. Oh, whoa." One of the babies inside the hole began to cry. Another sneezed. "These kids are freezing," said Murray. He went back inside the hole to wrap them in his wings. Kona was torn. He had to look for Stumpy, but where had she gone? She had never been to his house, so how did she think she could find him? The fall must have rattled her senses. Kona wanted to keep looking for her, but the babies needed shelter, and quickly. It would be very dangerous for them to be exposed to the cold much longer. Kona made a decision. He spoke into the hole. You have We have to get you to my house, Murray. You and the babies. Then I'll come back and search for Stumpy. Me and the babies, Murray said from within. Me? I'll be okay. I can't get them out of here alone, said Kona. Can't you just call a cab or something? Kona was thinking hard. I've got it, he said. You can all ride on my back. Excuse me, said Murray. He popped his head out of the hole again. It's the only way, said Kona. You can sit on my back and tuck the children inside your wings. It will be like riding a horse. Sure, like I've ever ridden a horse, answered Murray. We're going to end up on hard copy. I know it. But within minutes, Murray was on Kona's back, humming nervously, the babies tucked under his wings. Now that Kona had to carry everyone, he was really worried. He had fallen dozens of times on his way to the park, but he couldn't risk any such accidents on the journey home. There was only one thing to do. What? Murray called out. We're crawling. We're going to crawl. Gee, maybe we'll get there by September. We'll make it, said Kona. Just hold on tight to those babies. Ouch, Murray yelled. Ouch! Doesn't Stumpy ever feed these kids? It took Kona an hour and a half to make what usually took 10 minutes to get to his house. It was a good thing he was a Labrador retriever. Labradors can withstand very cold temperatures and great pain, and only a dog like Kona could have made the grueling journey home. In the moonlight of the clearing sky, everything glittered like diamonds, as if all the world had become a jewel, and even as Kona pulled himself across the yards, he was moved and strengthened by the incredible beauty all around him. He might even have forgotten that the others were with him, had not Murray yelled, "Get up!" every 5 minutes. When Kona finally saw Professor Albert's house again, and saw the front door was still slightly ajar, and that the fireplace still glowed, and that he was home, he wanted to weep. It was as if he were gazing at heaven itself. When Kona turned into the yard, Murray knew, too, that they had arrived. Yippee! He yelled. Kona struggled up the icy steps, then cautiously put his head inside the door. Professor Albert still lay snoring on the sofa. Welcome back, dear, Gwendolyn said softly. Kona walked into the room and gently laid down on the floor. Murray scooped up the babies and hopped off. Wow, said Murray. Look at the size of that television. Did I tell you I love Jeopardy? Gwendolyn smiled at Kona. A remarkable dog, she said.